All right. Good time and place, and seeing a quorum present, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you'd all please rise and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Then would you please take the roll?
Craig Portman,
Here.
Mike Higgins,
Here.
Lori Howe. Here. Fred Yant.
Here.
Diana Johnson.
Here.
Tony Arnett,
Here.
Tina Johnson.
Here.
David Schrader,
Here.
David Smith.
All right, preview the agenda. Do we have any changes we need to make in the order of items or inclusion of items?
No, I do have some gifts that I need to report during strategic discussion, or excuse me, during announcements and recognition.
All right, then we will move to public input. This is one of 2 times an agenda where members of the public may address the board. I ask that you step up to the podium. If you're here in person, make sure you sign the log that is up there. If you're attending virtually, you can use the raise your hand function to be recognized and ask that you keep your remarks brief. Is there anyone who'd like to be recognized at this time? Go ahead.
I wrote the log already. Robert Stocks, 901 Shamrock Lane. I transferred from middle school to Leaf 3 years ago now, the years before that, so went back to elementary school for a while. And one of the teachers I worked with had made some stuff up I thought would be pretty interesting to share with you. I think we were gonna do a more formal presentation in April or so, but want to share a couple of things. I was at middle school, what was it? Probably about 10, 11 years ago, we got the big garden in there. And we have made a really large garden at Lebanon now, probably about the same size or so, a little different layout. That chicken coop put in last year and got wired up to prevent any things happening to the chickens. It's pretty neat seeing the incubator, and we had some parents that have other animals there and helped out and gave us the chickens. We learned that the chickens were at a high temperature, you tend to get more roosters that way. So our first batch, we had only 1 hen out of it. We got roosters at a different farm and adopted 4 other ones that were bigger. We this year learned a little bit and were able to get 5 hens and 3 roosters instead. So we kept the temperature lower, which is pretty nice. I did send some photos to everybody earlier this morning, so you knew it was something I was talking about a little bit. And if I go over 3 minutes, bear with me, Mr. Arnett. I'll try not to, okay? The hens we had were laying eggs. It was pretty cool to see the kids eat eggs with egg salad or whatever. They had all had hard-boiled eggs, and the 2-3 room had graphed the eggs of the color they were, which I thought was pretty cool. It's funny. So and graphed the color of the eggs. I've seen these 7, 8-year-olds doing that, but they graphed the color of the shells. Or the color of the shell comes from some part underneath. I don't know about chicken, but that's science for many years. In your kids' science, things I don't know about the animals. And they graphed it all up and it was pretty neat. But then seeing the kids, they saw chickens get hatched, and then seeing that chicken grow and develop, and then have it laying eggs, which they collect and stuff too, and then eating those eggs was pretty neat thing. As all the stuff was going on there, I probably want to share it. Missy Braska has like on Facebook. If you go to Facebook, go to Leaf. She put a video of the chicken that was like in a room. She took a minute video of it. It's in there. Don't go by the. There's things of other teachers singing, so avoid that one. But I just want you to look at the animals.
That was the kid.
That you singing?
The chickens gotta be calm. The kids were real calm. It was pretty interesting to watch. We had a vegetable garden, so it was kind of some pumpkins. We had some are doing by some farmers too, but a lot of the vegetables were picked. We sold there was just a box, all lock box. People just kind of put in whatever they want as a donation. Made several $100 off of that. That was from the between the PTO and then the student council. I learned like rabbits a lot. Although I can't bring him home because my cats probably would not like the rabbit too much, but through the classrooms of a rabbit. Had a self-sustained aquarium that some parents put together. It's actually Ernie Nemo was retired, well, he's passed away. It was one of my science teachers at high school. His daughter and her husband kind of set up, so the pond's kind of dark, but there's no self-sustained plants in there, nothing anything with it. I sent some pictures to the FFA alumni donated some apple trees last year. So my class, second through fifth grade were planting them, although I want to do more of that work than I wanted to, but they learned how to plant them a little bit, learn about apples a little bit. The FFA is also donating a shed to be soon, which I'm hoping Mr. Supa knows about already, but I think he does. It's been out there quite a bit. So I think that was about it. I just wanted to share a couple of things I saw. Missy was taking these graphs, and I was like, I gotta share with some people. I know somebody in the school board, I kind of shared some stuff, even though I've seen you in town or something. I showed some pictures myself, but I thought I wanted to show everybody a little bit what was going on. But the website, Missy has a lot of stuff on there. If you go leaf on Facebook, there's all kinds of stuff on there, and hopefully go positive as long as you do that. Too. But, I didn't put my phone number, so some of you have it already, but if you ever want to go out there or need anything else, here's my number if you ever need it, okay? Hope that's okay for you.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else like to be recognized at this time? All right, anyone online? Okay, then we will move to announcements and recognition communications. And we will start with our student board representative, Ms. Walter.
Good evening, I'm Grayson Walter, WHS Student Council Representative. As the winter sports and seasons continue, teams continue to have wins and losses. Girls basketball is currently 12-5, boys basketball is 3-8, and I don't know if it's completely accurate, but wrestling is 1-1, at least last I heard. Some upcoming events include Do Be Nice Week, that is arranged by Student Council, Trivia Night, and parent-teacher conferences on February 1st. And a jazz concert on February 5th at 7 p.m. So Do Be Nice Week is February 26th through March 1st, where WHS Student Council encourages students and staff to be kind and appreciate each other. And then we also honor a selected staff member specifically for all their hard work for WHS. And then Trivia Night is held on February 3rd in the WHS gym. Looking forward to what opportunities next month brings.
Thank you very much. Superintendent?
Yeah, so I just wanted to recognize some gifts. All of these again are donations towards the Skills USA program. Kusel equipment, $500. Spuncast, $1,000 towards Skills USA. Clausen Quality Chocolates, $1,500. Ryan's Auto Care, $200. Metal Tech International, $1,000. And Seek Careers and Staffing, $1,100. Again, I want to thank them all for donating and making our Skills USA program possible.
Hand those around so you can see them. Anything else to cover under announcements and recognition or communications? No. All right. Then we will move on to strategic discussion. Our first item up is our annual audit report. Please refer to the document on your desks. And Chuck is here virtually this evening.
Okay. Hello, everyone. First time I've done this virtually. Given the ever-changing weather, I thought maybe this might be a good time to try this method out. But thank you for having me here tonight. I'm going to spend just a little time going over your financial statements. I'm going to start with the probably the larger of them. Will be labeled financial statement with independent auditors report. It's probably about 60 pages long. So we will go in depth on every one of those pages. Or not. Probably not. Okay, let's start with page 3. I'm assuming either you have it in hard copy or PDF.
We have it in both. Yep.
Okay, so the hard copy, we're looking at pages 3 to 5. PDF would be 4 to 6. This is the auditor's opinion. It is, a couple of things to note, independent auditors report. We are independent with regard to the district. The only tie we have is you pay the fee for us to do the audit. Noting, first part of the report is the opinion. Okay, they have the opinion at the beginning of the report now. They used to have it halfway through, but they, it's at the beginning of the report, and it is a clean opinion. It's the best opinion you can get. And it basically says, the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects, according to the rules that we have to audit by, government accounting standards, and that type of thing. Again, I always like to note it's materially correct. That doesn't mean that we looked at every transaction. Number one, we would not have the time to do that for all the districts we audit. And number two, the cost of the audit would go up prohibitively. So we look at enough to be comfortable with the numbers. Okay. Talks about the basis of opinion, mentions responsibilities of management. Yes, management has some responsibility for the financial statement. Top of the next page, then the auditors have responsibility. And there's some bullet points there. Those are always items that we had considered, but in the last about 3 years, they've put them in the body of the report. So everybody from a transparency aspect, everybody's aware of some of the stuff that we do regarding professional judgment and identifying risks and that type of thing. And then they reference some other reports that are part of the audit, supplementary information, that type of thing. So if we want to move on to the management discussion and analysis, that's the next section, the next about 7 or 8 pages. This is just a recap of your activity for the year. Numbers under the financial highlights, then an overview of the financials. A lot of that is boilerplate language. Moving to page 9, financial analysis of the district as a whole. And this is the only place where you're going to see comparative information is in the management discussion analysis. You can see the you have 22 and 23 information. Biggest thing is the current assets went down somewhat. Deferred inflows, you have some of those. There's really nothing you can access. And then long-term liabilities, other liabilities, deferred outflows and inflows, and then your net position. And your net position is kind of what's left if you had to sell everything and pay off your debt. Okay. And your net position went up for the current year. So if you flip the page, that shows you how your net position increased. Revenues, primarily your revenues come from property taxes and state and federal aid. You can see that 20 million of property taxes, state and federal aid is about 32 million. And those numbers, you know, if you look, the property taxes went down between 22 and 23, the state and federal aid went up. Okay, those are not always a inverse relationship. And the state and federal went up somewhat more than the other property tax went down, principally due to some of the pandemic and COVID funding, some of those programs that have extended for 2 and 3 years, the ESSER programs. Expenditures went up some. Again, a lot of this has to do with some of that ESSER funding. And if you look at the increase in net position, 2.9 million. Moving on to, you can see the next page, we're talking about some net costs of the instruction. Again, the net cost typically is going to go up similarly to what your cost from the gross cost did from year to year. Net cost is just, in some instances, you have user fees. What I can think of is stuff like, and some grants. So you might have idea grants that are specifically associated with special education. Reduces your cost of special education. Food service charges for meals. Again, reduces your cost of the food service program. And at the bottom, you see the graph on page 11, that kind of the pie chart that gives you an idea of percentages from state, federal, property taxes, operating grants, and the charges for services. Next page, they talk more about the expenses. You have instruction in there. Okay, so from a fund standpoint, now this is government wide. So the fund standpoint, your instruction is over 50%, which you would expect it to be because that's what you're in the business of doing. And the pupil and instructional services, it's not direct instruction, but obviously that impacts how the district operates. Okay. Administrative and business, a lot of that might be related to food service. That's where the food service goes, is in the administrative and business. And then you have debt outstanding, so there's interest on debt. Your general fund had an increase in fund balance, debt service fund a slight decrease, and the other funds an increase of about 500,000. Next section is capital assets and debt. And I'll save some of this till we get in the rest of the statement. Not that I'm going to spend a lot of time on it, but let's flip to page 15, statement of net position. If you're looking at it via PDF, that's going to be page 19 in your PDF. I just want to note a couple of items here. There's something about a third of the way down the page, just before it says total assets. It's labeled Sabita assets being amortized. This is one of those added this year. We are required to add this due to government auditing standards. And what that is it's the current value of access to IT software that you do not own, but somebody hosts it for you and you have, let's say, cloud access to it. These are only items that are somewhat major expenses, and again, it's only not basically $100,000. Smaller ones we just excluded; they're not worth worrying about. But it'd be like curriculum or your Skyward financial program, student records, that type of thing. Okay. Now, last year, the Wisconsin Retirement System had net asset position, which meant they were funded at more than 100% of what they expected to pay out. Obviously, we all know that these markets kind of crashed in 2022 and into early 23. So in the current year, the asset disappeared from WRS, and now there's a liability. As I said last year, when you had an asset, it's not something you can go out and spend. Likewise, this year, there's a liability. It's not something you're going to have to turn around and pay. Okay. It's just strictly based on markets. And even though it went down, WRS is still funded at almost 96% of the expected liabilities, which for years they've been in the top 5 in the country for funding their retirement plan, and many times they're first or second. So it's not a concern. I suspect next year at this time, as I'm talking to you, some of that will have bounced back, since the last half of 23 was relatively good for markets. So just wanted to point that out. Other than that, I do know if we flip to page 17 and 18, this shows you fund statements, which is what DPI is concerned with. Now, your fund balance right now is staying around 30 million, which is more than 50% of your 1 year's expenditures. That was by design, as I recall, with the idea that some of those additional funding sources will disappear, and you want to maintain the educational stuff that you had in place. So you purposely built up that fund balance with the idea that it will take a hit someplace down the road, but you will not have to cut, hopefully not have to cut programs like you may have had you not planned for it. Okay. I see Superintendent nodding his head, so I think we're on, we're on the right track there with that idea. And after that, pages 20 on basically through the end, footnotes, more detail on the numbers up front. I think I already mentioned anything I'm really wanted to point out. Regarding, let's say, the WLS being a liability now instead of an asset. You're paying off long-term debt that you have outstanding. You're down to about $12.5 million. And your OPEB healthcare, which you do on a pay-as-you-go basis, went down about $200,000 last year. It's still $9 million, but it's still you're making payments as you go, and there's a limited number of years. People get to the Medicare age, they fall off your schedule, and you pay them. Some of those benefits have been changed over the last few years to eventually that liability will go down more dramatically as people age out of it. So that's really about all I have. I wanted to kind of keep it short. Any questions?
Board members, questions? Chuck, are you also going to address the other document at all?
Yep, I can do that. So
Otherwise,
that's
check one more thing at the end of this one on page 54, 55.
Yep.
In terms of internal controls. And I did note that you continue to note the one thing we've always recognized, which is that we're not going to take on the expense of hiring somebody to do your job full-time for us. So while that exists as a quote-unquote deficiency, according to GAAP, we all understand that that's just the way we're doing business. And there's
correct.
nothing,
And
it's not a violation, just.
yeah, as I've mentioned for many years to all my clients, of the probably over 100 audits that we do out of a Manitowoc office, there's one or two that don't get this. Typically that means they have a CPA on staff who also keeps up with continuing education requirements and disclosure. And even some of them that may have staff that do that, they still need a little nudge from our standpoint. Maybe some things they don't are totally up on, like the Sabina stuff this year. Okay. But again, it's very typical. I think if you talk to any audit firms, they're going to have a vast majority of those that have that finding. So again, nothing to be concerned with. It's and let me tell you, DPI is well aware of that. They again, they don't put, I don't think they put any you get no demerits for having that, because again, if you did, I would say 90+% of the 470 districts in the state would be on their watch list. So that's not a concern.
Thank you. So to me, it's just
Okay.
importantly know the deficiencies were not. So good.
Yeah, then we also issue a shorter letter talking about communications with those charged with governance. Fancy title for communications to the board. It has a lot of standard verbiage in the items that we are required to disclose to you. We're in compliance with ethics requirements regarding independence. I kind of alluded to that earlier. If you flip the page to page 3 of that report, significant risks. Now, there are always a couple of risks that are inherent in almost any business. Now, you may or may not consider yourself a small business, a small entity, but in a entity of your size and personnel, you can't separate everything entirely. Management is always there that could override controls. An improper revenue recognition is that's a given in any business. It goes back to Arthur Andersen and WorldCom, and where they were changing stuff just by moving it from one line to the other. So you have significant risks, but we have designed our audit procedures to address that. So again, not a major concern from your part. Talks about estimates, because there are estimates in your financial statements, principally related to Wisconsin retirement system and your post-employment benefits, because it's based on census of your people. And the actuaries have to take a guess at how long people are going to live, how long they're going to be available to, that they're going to be tracking stuff, estimates of how long they remain employed in your district. And so then there's, after the standard verbiage, there's management advisory comments. And, we only have one comment from a prior year, and it's just getting the amended and original budget numbers in your software properly. Again, not a big concern. Your final budget numbers are really the ones we're concerned with. And that's what we look at to kind of give an idea of how do things match up with where you thought they would be. So that is the extent of that report. I guess one other item, we do attach the adjusting journal entries. There's not a page label on there, but you can see that it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entries. Anything less than 10 entries we consider pretty good information. And you'll see a number of them are labeled adjustment made per client subsequent to importing the trial balance. So we get the trial balance from your business department. If they come upon something as they're working through our information, they say, hey, we got to make this entry yet. So really, we've got 1, 2 entries that we came up with on our own, and the other 3 were from your staff. So that's excellent. They really do a good job. Stacy's been kind of the glue that's held it together as you transition from one business manager to the next. And we hope certainly that Sarah's there for a good number of years. But everybody in the business office, very helpful, and they just make our job easier. Now I think I'm done.
Comments or questions from the board? Well done, financial team.
Yeah, second that.
All right. Thank you very much, Chuck.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too, please. Our next item on strategic discussion is Wade Schrader sharing some things that he learned at the CISA 2 conference.
I'm gonna give a book report here. If the clicker works, I'll take it. Otherwise, Tyler, just try to keep up because I'll go fast.
What?
I got 2 of them. That's, yeah, I'm just gonna stand next to this one because it'll make it even go faster. So, of this, I think it's 19 pages, only the first 4 are mine. The rest are excerpts from several of the breakout sessions I attended, much like WASB. This was the AISA conference in Anaheim in early December. And so I went there as a guest or a paid guest of CISA 2, which I am your representative on. And forward goes to forward, yep. Okay, so this actually got cut up a little bit for many of you in the room, or maybe just the board members, or maybe just me. I wasn't aware of how all CISAs work. So in Wisconsin, they're called Cooperative Education Service Agencies. The rest of the country has BOSAs or ESAs, et cetera. We have 11 of them. We're in CISA 2. We are the largest by total number of school districts, but we are not the largest by student population. That's the Milwaukee School District. But every state has something like this. I shouldn't say every state. Many states have something like this. And what I found out in Anaheim is that, for example, in Nebraska, a school board member can't be on their CISAs and they have to be on the general election. So just like we run for the board here, they have to run, and that is not really a sought after seat. It turns out West Virginia just defunded theirs, so they get their CISAs get no funds from their states. And it's a variety of things across the country. I spent some time with Washington and Texas and Nebraska. Of those breakout sessions, I figured I'd just show you what CISAs talk about. The bulk of them were, it didn't even show it. Cut me off there. I forget what number 1 was. But number 2 was student resiliency. If you look at innovation and tech and AI and data, that made up 27%. I think this was CISA growth. CISA growth. So how to be a better and bigger CISA. Even though they are 501c3s, they operate, let's say, like a YMCA or a health foundation or a economic development entity. Their goal is to get bigger and to have more influence. They have to comply to open record laws like a school board, but they decidedly have a very entrepreneurial vibe to them to have more influence and to get our districts like us to buy more services from them. So this was focused on all of the CISAs or ESAs throughout the country. 12% on professional development and teacher development, leadership, board development, and then school safety. So what I wanted to talk to you about were these 2. This is roughly about 100 sessions, so it comes out to almost exactly 14 of them. And I went to about 8 in that category because those are what interested me. Now the rest of the slides are going to be from the CISA in Everett, Washington, from Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and then one from Amazon Web Services. So these are some pretty cool slides, and that's why I just stole from somebody else because they spent a lot more time on their presentations than I did. Mainly this has to do with ChatGPT or OpenAI. Microsoft has it, Google has it. There's 4 or 5 other suppliers you can get and type information into bots and get them to answer your questions. We know the students are using it because I've been told my students or my kids who are students use it. So what this first presentation had to deal with is how should principals and administrators and school boards be using it? And then first of all, how do you feel about it? And this was just an interesting slide just because it had either the Terminator or somebody in The Sound of Music. Your choice, what you think AI is going to do to America, to culture, et cetera. So without getting into too much detail, for boards, boards are currently using it for strategic planning, for policy creation and review, and summarizing input. Superintendents, enhancing communication, predictive and analytical strategic planning, and people processes. Principals, creating efficiencies, student interventions, leading and coaching. Teachers, for personalized learning, analyze student work, and unit lesson design. We'll talk about that, I think, next. So that was from Washington. This next one came from the Westmoreland WIU, using the magic of artificial intelligence. And I will let you know that a lot of the titles use magic in it because we were in the shadow of Disneyland and everybody just figured Magic Kingdom, let's put magic in the title. Nonetheless, this was from Westmoreland WI, they call themselves WIU, Westmoreland Intermediate Unit. And this was PLAY, and I can't even remember what PLAY stands for. It's somewhere on one of these slides, it doesn't matter. It's Professional Learning and You, I think it is. Nonetheless, this is the interface with ChatGPT, and what they were there to teach you is how you can insert a topic, define the audience, that will be completed by, and what it will give you is it gives you a professional development plan in about 20 minutes. I shared this with Jenny and Margaret, and we've already sat through one more training on this from WIU and PLAY, Professional Learning and You. And ultimately, this is to be more focused, more relevant, newer, than what maybe you're familiar with PD. And you can ask the chat bot to knock it down to only 15 minutes. You can integrate video, et cetera. And what PLAY really specializes in is teaching you how to make an appropriate prompt to these systems. And turns out prompting is now a job. Okay, you can go out there and get a job as a professional prompter. If you know how to ask AI questions, you will get better AI answers. And there are people who are majoring in it. And one of the presentations I attended showed you just how much you could make in Wisconsin as a prompter. It's somewhere in the 60s, just to know how to prompt AI to give you good answers. But it'd be something like this. Please create me a professional learning activity about blank for blank that teachers will be completed by an individual. Completion takes approximately 30 minutes, et cetera. Cut it, paste it, slap it in. And the people at Westmoreland Intermediate Unit will help you create your own PDs. So, and then lastly, is information from AWS. This is probably going to be more for Jason and Sarah. This AWS is out there to help you. Of course, they expect to get your business. Predicting school enrollment. In Arizona, school was paying $20,000 once a year for a manual report to predict school enrollment at 80% accuracy. They switched to using AWS's AI system, and now they're doing it with 90% accuracy, run on demand for $600 a year. They can give you cool graphs, business intelligence with Amazon QuickSight, test scores by borough in New York, if you were interested in it. This gets to dashboards and how we want to interact with AI and information as a school district or school board. Here's all the things that they can do for you. I think I was on a help site this morning and I was pretty sure my chat bot was an AI engine. It was kind of frustrating, but at the same time, the more you use it, the better we'll get. Conversational search, document processing, text summarization, school safety, pretty much everything under the sun, AWS will help you with. And specifically, I'll say, Jason, this slide, which is your K-12 generative AI readiness checklist. I have the full slide decks on all three of these, plus a few other ones. This will help our district learn where we are in the spectrum of using AI. And then the last one, which I wasn't aware of, Amazon's ready to give out $20 million if you apply for grants related to AI and the use of it in your district. So once again, I have all the slide decks on this. I went through it fast only because each one of these three presenters was a 45-minute presentation. So I tried to knock them out in about 2 minutes each and give you the flavor for what was out there. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Comments? People have comments about it? Again, you have all the presentation,
I
so
do.
if somebody would like to see more details behind any of these, they can simply ask you.
That is true, and then all the presenters were more than happy to continue talking afterwards. In fact, if you call them, they will talk to you even more. So, I mean, from what does it mean for us? There's a lot of things on the table. I don't think that AI and launching an entire initiative on that subject was something that we were looking for teaching the kids. However, since I went to that, I've used AI to, well, first I tried write me a poem about flannel shirts. It did it. Write me a corrective action plan for a manager who is having some difficulties with his employees. Write me a key learnings guide so that when I sit down with my managers at our recurring monthly, or excuse me, quarterly meeting, I can get the key learnings from the book that I'm going to give them to read. And then there was, I even said, write me a strategic plan for a school district. And in about 2 seconds, I had an entirely new strategic plan. So Diana, you're off the hook. So, but buyer beware. The biggest thing in any of this stuff is the example was, give me a 2-paragraph summary of the written word. And it started, 10,000 years ago. The thing is, it entirely eliminated Asian influence. It was entirely Western slanted because the bots were searching Western servers. And so there was nothing in there about the Chinese influence on the written word, or even Saudi Arabian, or Iranian, or Syrian, or Mesopotamian. It was entirely about the Western perspective of the written word. So be aware, it's always a good starting point. It can get you going in a particular direction, but do not copy and paste. So that's what I learned. Thanks.
All right, thank you. This takes us to reports, and our first item up is the superintendent's report.
This was totally AI generated? No.
Exactly.
So, welcome everybody. Picture in the right-hand corner are DA students. They made those snowflakes out of paper bags. And we just thought that was amazing, being a snowier day. Or it might be rain, maybe snow tomorrow morning, we don't know. I'll probably throw that in there. No. Now we will try. Oh. You go. Thank you. WSD has been awarded National Association of Music Merchants, 2023. Tony Evers, Governor, gave us a nice little certificate. I'll pass that around. So congratulations again, to our music department, and those who support them. We truly do in this community support our music education, so I just wanted to celebrate that. Also opportunities, and you'll see the next few slides are full of opportunities from the board members and staff who attended this year's convention. Couple of things in there that are important. It was 103rd annual. It was on the 17th through the 19th, just this last week, and we were a number out of 300 or 3,300 people who attended. So it's quite a few people there, all with a lot of great ideas. You may recognize the person on the left. That is our Sarah Oudenhoven, and yes, that is John Quinones. John Quinones was one of the speakers this year. Sean Covey, son of Stephen Covey, who is also author and has extended his father's work, was there speaking. Tony Evers, Maya Payne-Smart, who talked a lot about literacy and being literacy advocates, was there. And of course, State Superintendent Dr. Jill Underly was there in attendance, talking about, thinking about how we make decisions and how we make decisions that support students. Also, you may recognize, I am sitting in something with a very important person, who rubs elbows with celebrities. That again is Sarah Oudenhoven on the right, and then we are in something called a Nook Pod. It was really interesting because we just walked by and I said, wait, what is that? And their vendor was sitting where Sarah was, and he said, come on over and sit down. And I sat in there, and all of the noise that was in that vendor hall almost disappeared. It was amazing how this thing was set up and developed. They sell these to utilize in special education rooms and regular education settings. There's different kinds. They have them in libraries all over, but Sarah and I, once I got in there and I couldn't believe the difference it made. I said, Sarah, come on over here, check this out. And so we got some information on it, but I just wanted to share with you, like, there are some things that you learn. I never even knew these existed. I don't know if we'll get one, but I will tell you, it did make a mark on me enough to present to you today and to share some information with you. But we attended many breakout sessions while we were there. And I'm sure in February, one of our strategic discussions will be information that we learned from that and that we can present to you in detail. Some important reminders of meetings coming up. February 16th through is Staff Development Day, no school. And then we have our regular committee meetings. I do want to add that on February 21st, we do have a special board meeting on data that's matched up against the fiscal management meeting. Also, that's that evening. I did hear that there was a request that if we were going to double up meetings, that we could try to bring in some snacks or food or something. So we will make sure that for David, we will do that for him, so that he won't be hungry.
Say that.
The other thing that you did say that I took note. The other thing I want to mention to you is, yes, it is that time of year again, where our education foundation will be doing its jig jog again. The dates are the date is Saturday, March 16th. They are seriously looking for volunteers and people to participate. So if you are free on the 16th, or if you're not, and you still have time to make your schedule free, I suggest you try to make your schedule free, and if you can, volunteer or participate. That's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions? No? All right, thank you very much. Then we will move on to fiscal management.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fiscal committee met on January 11th. All committee members were present. Also present were Sarah Duncan, Jesse Domer, and Kevin Succo. We talked about the facilities master planning agreement. You will see this is one of a couple items on the agenda tonight. The team met with different architect firms discussed the district planning RFP that was out. They came with a unanimous vote for Plunkett Rayish Architects. And talking to Sarah about this, sounded like everyone really liked what they were doing. This wasn't the lowest number from the different ones, but really felt that this one, the lowest bid one, a lot of the work would have been on our end. So what are we paying them for? So this one, they would have people on site, do the work themselves, and really were impressed everyone with their responses to the questions and meetings on this. So the fiscal committee approved bringing this forward to the board. There is a resolution, there was a resolution to purchase a Ford F-550 last January. But they were unable to, Ford was unable to provide us that vehicle timely. They ran out. So we had to go with the next year's model, which increased the cost by $3,400. The committee recommended moving forward with the purchase regardless, because we already have there. Also on the agenda for tonight is a resolution. Mr. Domer, I don't see him here. No, there he is, Jesse. Hey, Jesse. Is generously suggesting to use the Act 59 funds that the CTE department kind of oversees to purchase a van for the district. And it would be primarily used by the CTE department, but it would be also in the rotation for the other areas to use as needed on this. The committee talked about this. One of the things we thought is that, yes, there is a need for more vans in the district, and we thought that that the funds should come from the district as a whole, not just from the CTE area. But we welcome the funds from the CTE area for this, and we are setting this forward for approval as well on this. The memo of understanding resulting from the RFP for the financial auditing services was also presented. And remember, we only had one group that came forward with the audit, so Sarah put that forward for us. So to go ahead with that, and we have the running agenda item of our calendar. And one of the big items coming up will be student enrollment projections will be on the February agenda. And we also took a recommendation to bring forth any items. We noticed that there were kind of low on items for February, March. So we said, hey, look, is there anything coming up April, May? We want to have conversation on. One of the things that we're doing, and Sarah and I are working on this, is planning out all of the items that we would have on a regular basis, or things that we know contracts come up that and when are they staged throughout the year, so that we can back those up by 2-3 months, so that we can bring them to the group, have those conversations, even if we need them multiple months. So we're not brought up to the committee and then say, hey, look, we need to vote on this tonight. So we have some more time on that. So that's a process we've been working on here for the last 6 months or so. No questions about the monthly reports in the meeting, and we adjourned at 6:06 p.m. The next meeting will be February 21st at 5:30, and your dinner reservations are due slightly before the meeting starts for that.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on that report? None. HR.
All right, here we go. We met on Monday, January 15th. And we went over the consent agenda, which we do have as a resolution tonight, as far as staff appointments, resignations, and terminations. We had also discussed, as far as Margaret really brought forth, as far as an update on the plan for developing the 25-26 calendar. You know, taking the information of which was shared at last month's meeting, in combination with us evaluating the process and the information and feedback that Margaret receives, that process and the communication and things like that will be, it started much earlier, will be started in June, it sounds like. We also talked about as far as the 2-year rolling calendar that was recommended. And so that's gonna kind of be put together as far as an in-depth process, as far as getting input from all of the stakeholders and being able to develop something and communicate along the way and things like that. So, that's gonna be in process, and I'll be looking for more information there. The substitute staffing update, as far as, seeing as how we had a major shortage, it's only been in place for a short amount of time, that there were some wage increases there. And 12 bonus payments have been paid to paraprofessional substitute staff members. And so then we're just kind of looking as far as, monthly updates on fill rates and seeing if that is making a difference for us and helping us to solve, the shortage issue there. Much like, didn't consult with Fred, but much like, fiscal, we're getting our processes and things like that. And so, one of the things that we're looking at doing is, if we see that something is going to be coming up in the following month, as far as resolution will end up coming out of that, we want to do like an education or an information piece the month prior to be able to give us that information so that we can all be better prepared and operating efficiently and effectively as we can. So with that being said, Margaret really wanted to share the educator compensation model RFP preparation documents. And so if you're interested in those were attached to our meeting minutes as far as we're able to review those. And those are different information and different recommendations and things like that for an educator compensation model, as we will be needing to do a review of that. So at our February meeting, one of the things is that we'll have pre-read those, and then we're gonna be deciding, okay, so our next compensation model, what are the things that are important to us and how are we gonna be developing on that? Is it based on, retention, performance, recruitment, those kind of, things. So if you're interested there, you join us. We also received a memo as far as summer school compensation adjustments for educators, and then that's gonna be put in a regular review process for Margaret and Sarah Duncan. And then we had summer school staffing review by Educational Services Committee. And so the HR committee has the staffing for summer school. And so we just wanted to bring that up in cooperation with the Educational Services Committee as they are reviewing the summer school, that the needs as far as staffing is concerned will be housed there. And then we just know that that's where it's going to be reviewed, and it will just come to us as far as information is concerned. Administrator performance standards, that was an information topic, as that will be coming forth next month as a resolution. Future meeting planning, so February, we're gonna have consent agenda, employee satisfaction survey timeline, our RFP for education or compensation model, negotiations planning and process for proposal, and coach evaluation process. We adjourned at 6:35, our next meeting, February 19th.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions in that report? None, then we'll move to Ed Services. Okay.
Would you like me to share?
I'd like you to.
Okay. Tony, I
Is Tony
will-
good at this time?
Well, it's for Tony.
Hi. Tony, would you like me to add? There you go.
All right, so we started off with our continuing series on Act 20 updates from our director. Thank you very much. And then we moved to talking about the 6th grade elective updates. And this is primarily referencing the Smart Lab acquisition being funded by the Benson Family Foundation, and then just formally noting that. We talked briefly about the ESSER updates, you see that, and moved on to talking about the science standards. And again, there is separate committee work that is occurring on the science standards. We briefly discussed open enrollment seats because essentially the board's status continues to be we're open to as many as ever, regular education, and then pretty much closed from a special education perspective that been our stance for several years. And really the largest part of the discussion of the last two items, which were course proposals. One, you had a hospitality and tourism elective course proposed at RMS, and we discussed that through and agreed with moving that forward. And then the item, probably do the largest discussion actually was the last one, which is the proposal for the honors ELA. And slightly different in the sense of what the committee's reaction was, yes, more. It really wasn't questions. It was enthusiasm and can we get more? And so as a result of that, we appreciate the administration went back and looked at that and has now brought forward that the final form of the proposal is for 7th and 8th grade, not just 8th grade. And both those items are included on our agenda. And it's not noted here, but I'm pretty sure our adjournment time was, got notes on that.
I'm not noted there.
I'm pretty sure it was like about 8:06.
Remember, it was virtual only. It was.
Thank you, 8:36.
I'm trying to stand up for you, David.
What do you mean? I delegated and they're doing a good job.
That's right.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
8:36, and Dave Smith was present,
Yeah, and Dave Smith.
so the number of variables was down to 1.
Be back in February. Buckle up.
Bring back your quiet, let me adjust my calendar.
Alrighty. Comments or questions on that report? Then we will move on to policy.
All right. Policy committee met, Monday, January 15th. At, I believe it was 6:30-ish, just shortly after. We started a little bit late. Committee members present were myself, Lori Holland, Tina Johnson, and Virgil and David Schrader. Others present were Freddie Yant and Superintendent Jared Burke. The first read of the aligned Neola policies and bylaws from the from our Watertown Unified School District policies. We're trying to combine the policies together as part of our process here. The committee discussed several Neola policies that have been aligned with the Watertown Unified School District policies. This group of bylaw policies were easily aligned with the current Watertown Unified School District policies. Dr. Burke shared that some of the Neola policies were used as is to replace the Watertown Unified School District policies with minor revisions made to the policies, while others were hybrid of Neola and the Watertown Unified School District policy. We did have some questions and some discussion regarding a few policies put forth. Here are some of the highlights of those. There was a question about policy 0155, which was basically discussing committees, yeah. And we wanted to make the update to reflect the language of our previous policy, which I noted that has taken place. Another particular policy was policy 0122, board powers. The question came up that language previously placed in the policy was to utilize data and information based on the strategic plan and on student needs to make decisions and modify actions at the Watertown Unified School District and board level. And the minor change to that would be to strike the building level, because we felt as though the decision-making process along the and modify actions along the strategic plan should for the board level, as far as board powers, remain at the district level, and administration should handle the building level. So that was that change. Policy 0142.5 was actually pulled out of the order to correctly reflect the current practices behind filling vacancies. Policy 0167.3 was a change that you'll probably see coming forward in the sense that it's discussing public comment. Some of the bigger points on that would be attendees. Attendees must register their intention to comment prior to the comment period. So there's two opportunities for comment. They would register their intention to speak prior to the first one. And if they didn't make the first one, they would register their intent to speak for the second opportunity for public comment. We also somewhat codified that comments should be limited to about 3 minutes by the presiding officer. Then as well, we also went with the language in Neola that said, no participant may speak more than once on the same topic in the same meeting. Actually kind of modified that a little bit, so, can't just, keep talking about the same, you know, it's not intended to be a debate among public comments. And then another change that we'll see, coming up here in the future would be, policy 151.1, the annual board reorganization, which has typically taken place where the, presiding officer would seek a motion to temporarily appoint the superintendent as the presiding officer of the board, the chairman of the board, for the period of reorganization. That is basically going to change in the sense that the superintendent will open the meeting until the presiding officer has been elected. So those are some of the other changes. We had discussion about Neola policies within, the Neola bylaws that didn't have a previous Watertown Unified School District policy to match. And we agreed that those would just be prepped for the first board meet, the January board meeting here. So if Neola had a policy bylaw that we didn't have, we're pushing that forward as a first read, as a committee. And then if it was a policy that we had that Neola didn't have, we're actually setting that aside temporarily. You know, I guess for lack of a better word, is being postponed for discussion until we can get through more of the process and then have more of a discussion around those particular topics. And then you'll also see the first read of the 9,000 relations policies as well. There's about 7 of them. And our next meeting will be February 14th at 5:30.
Comments or questions? Again, we do have a number of these policies that are included in the consent agenda. So if your comments are about those, I'd ask you please wait until that agenda item. Any other comments or questions on the report? All right, thank you. Then we will move on to planning committee.
As you probably remember, planning has kind of restructured things this year, where we have broken each meeting into 3 major pillars, one being board development, one being strategic planning, and one being superintendent evaluation. And within those 3 pillars, we've each kind of assumed some larger roles in leadership taking forward. So it's not just the committee chair doing that, but kind of that divide and conquer. Under board development, Tina Johnson kind of updated us on, or brought us up to speed in terms of our last board development session back in October, the survey results, and I'm just summarizing those things. The big piece coming out of that, is something that we had all agreed to at the, board retreat, and that was that roles and responsibilities activity should be a part of the onboarding process. So that will come up at the March meeting, and we'll do some review of that and kind of work on that to make that a more formalized document. In addition to that, we talked about onboarding new members, which was something that also came out of our board development session. And with the next election, there are 3 open seats. And so with that, there's potential for new members in terms of this board. And so looking, one of which would be a new board president. And we're needing to kind of have some discussion as to what are we going to do in terms of a succession plan moving forward. So that's another topic that we will take a little bit deeper delve into at our next meeting. In terms of strategic planning, there are a lot of different initiatives going on throughout the district. And Dr. Burke has brought forth a lucid document. If you haven't had a chance to read through some of the details and things on this, we got a first look at that, and it's pretty amazing how organized, for me, who's very logical, sequential. It's a roadmap that has links and things in it. Very, very user-friendly, very, very informational based. So please take some time as that comes to our fingertips. I don't know exactly when that's going to be, because right now it's in the very beginning process. But when that does come out, it'll be very beneficial for us. Additionally, the question came up, and this was a sidebar, as far as we have 2 different email systems going on right now. One is Outlook and one is Google, and those 2 don't play well together. And we are told that it's anticipated that by the end of the year will be to one platform. So kind of keep an eye out for that. Also under strategic planning, gosh, I want to give you an acronym, Jason. The Director of Innovation, Technology, Data and Strategy. But he does a lot, wears a lot of hats. Shared with us a draft of the RFP to find a group to help us with the strategic plan. Very in-depth kind of look at things in there. We were very much intrigued by what he had to share. The committee will help to work through this process. There will be a board member on that committee, similar to what they did with advanced learning, similar to what they did with the math curriculum adoption. So more of that will be forthcoming. Please note that this will then come back to planning committee, and then the planning committee will then bring the top choices before the board. And then our last pillar was the superintendent evaluation, and we talked about the last quarterly evaluation process as well as the next steps and upcoming with that. That was kind of where my role was, and there was a question that came up, why was there a change in the process and what had happened there? And the committee at a previous meeting, if you may or may not recall, had asked for some more information, some more tangible pieces to kind of look at and work through. The DAPES model that we've been working at started about 8 to 10 years ago. And so trying to find something that would give us a little more tangible pieces there in front of us to look at. It was noted that, how do I say this politely? That Dr. Burke did a lot of sharing. And there wasn't a lot of board members sharing back. There wasn't the, as was anticipated. I'll just leave it at that. So with the form that was there, on the very, very bottom, there was a spot for board feedback. And so we will look to hopefully have a little bit more board feedback in the future. The committee made a suggestion to President Tony Arnett to provide some more of this, so more information on that would be forthcoming. And then lastly, because we have a new format this year, we don't have a very formal calendar. It's very fluid in nature. So if you have questions, please reach out.
Thank you. Comments or questions on that report? None, all right. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes our meeting minutes, committee summaries, personnel staffing changes, which includes retirements, resignations, and appointments, the approval of bills, and the first and second reading policies. There are a number of first readings coming out of that work with the Neola. There are no second readings. Do I hear a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Oh, just close. Moved by Fred, seconded by David. All right, comments or questions on the motion? So I'll start with a comment. I really sincerely appreciate the work done, starting with the superintendent and our deputy clerk in amalgamating all of these policies, and then in the policy committee in working through them. Other comments or questions? I did have one comment on one policy that I failed to provide in advance of the policy meeting that I want to get to, but I'll let everybody else go first.
Too late.
Yeah, so I did neglect to make a comment on 167.3, which is the public comments policy. So as someone who has sat in this chair for a number of years and managed this particular portion of our process, the addition of having attendees register their intention to comment prior to the public portion of the meeting, I'm just not sure how practical that will be from several considerations. One, if I'm attending virtual, how do I do that? Number two, I, as presiding officer, have no idea who has and hasn't signed up. So are you gonna ask me to stop every single person before they say, did you register in advance? And when they haven't, say, no, then I'm sorry, you can't speak.
No, we're gonna bring the piece of paper over to you and say, here are the people who are speaking tonight, who have signed up.
So only the people who signed up in advance, and I'll basically call them in the order they're on the sheet.
That was.
And if you didn't sign up, you're out of luck.
Well, logistically, everything you're saying is correct, and we recognize the difficulty. We would leave a second sheet out there.
Yeah.
So that if somebody in the audience wanted to speak, they
At
would
the
then
second
sign
one.
up, and then we collect that sheet at the end. And then they'd be able to sign up for the second.
They could wait to the end.
Yes, correct.
After probably the item they came for having already been deliberated. I think that item in particular is extremely problematic in terms of, I think, I'm not sure it's sending the message the board wants to send about public participation. That's.
As far as the virtual part, that's gonna have to be worked out somehow, as far as being able to, provide advance notice of a, public comment, maybe that is a blurb in the chat box that has to be, read off at the meeting for that particular individual to participate in public comment. There was discussion about that type of limit being put forth, simply because it can be an intimidating process to speak before the board, and members of the public may feel some comfort in having a peer speak before them, before public comment. And I guess it wasn't really intended to be something to limit discussion, but rather to limit the debate that can happen, where an individual may choose to pile on to a particular topic oh, I just remembered this and, lengthen the meeting, at that point. So it's a tough one.
I wasn't at the meeting. Can someone please help me to understand what would be the rationale to signing up in advance as opposed to attending a meeting? As a parent that's attended meetings before I sat in this chair, there are times that I came with my pre-written, this is what I want to talk about, this is what I want to address to the board. There are other times where I attended virtually or sat in those seats, and sometimes I waited till after the end, topics came up and things. I'm just curious as to what the purpose behind that would be, because right now my brain's thinking, well, we're inhibiting some of the conversation or some of the voice that might be there, and I don't want to jump to any conclusions, so.
And I'll take one first answer to that. First of all, and not gonna say Neola's best practice, but remember, we're inheriting what Neola recommends or uses elsewhere. Okay, so then it's our choice to do we take it or do we not? The policy committee didn't come up with this on our own and say, hey, we need to make a change. This wasn't reviewed and recommended internally. This was for the ease of conversion. It's better to taking more of what Neola offered than less. But that's answer number one, which was not even really an answer to the question. But to Craig's point, if there are times, and this is where the policy committee discussed it, and I think that Craig just hit on it, was piling on. If you're coming here for a purpose to speak on a topic, and you're going to be articulate, you're going to be organized, you're going to be ready, and you're not going to be reminded of something that happened because you heard somebody else talk. And the purpose of public comment is obviously to inform the board of the thoughts of the public, and we give them ample opportunity to do it. Do we need to have people in the audience who aren't 100% sure what they're going to say or when they're going to say it, at the spur of the moment, come up there and then take what could be, and Tony, I may be one of the few remaining that was on here during the end of COVID. I think Lori and Tina, of course, as well. Those things lasted for 2 hours of public comment. And many of the comments were identical to somebody prior, and we have the business of the board to conduct. It doesn't mean that we don't open ourselves to emails or public comment at the end, but how much is enough to inform the board of what the public view is? We don't limit the number of signups, so come prepared. We come prepared, the public can come prepared. That's my rationale on the answer. Although Tony has done a good job of limiting it, you can just be diligent from that seat and accomplish the same thing, but then you run the risk of potentially looking like you're playing favorites, in which case having a policy made sense. So my 2 cents on that discussion.
Fred?
A couple things there too, I was there with that. We were cognizant of the fact that, you come to the meeting, couple of things. One, you have somebody stand up at the podium and they spend a minute and they're writing down their address. We wanted to move that ahead of time before they do that to shorten the process. 2 is you have those people who come to the meeting and somebody says something and they say, okay, I want to talk on this. All we're asking for them to do is that if you haven't signed up prior to that session, go sign up for the second session. You still have your opportunity, you still have it, you just don't have it in the heat of the moment. That being said, the policies do give quite a bit of latitude to the person in that seat. The board president can adjust as needed for that meeting. And they do give that board president that policy as running the meeting for that, so we don't take that entirely away. And again, I think it just formalizes the process a little bit more. Hey, look, if you're gonna be here, you wanna speak, be sure you sign up. I know there's gonna be a transition process, but I think as we formalize this and talk it through and say, remind people to the meetings, sign up before the meeting, sign up before the meeting. Most of these people were here tonight before the meeting started. Just remember, if you're gonna speak tonight, sign up, for this. And then, I think it's just gonna be a bit of a transition process to that new process, but I don't see a risk there, a ton of, that's gonna happen.
So if I may, just for a moment, I'm unclear in the policy where the latitude that you refer to exists. Because everything says shall and must, shall and must, shall
Yeah,
and
the
must.
sign up was shall and must, the duration and the number and the total duration, Fred, I think, is it gonna be limited to 3 minutes or could the president let somebody go over? Was it gonna be limited to 45 minutes in aggregate or could the president let it go over? But I think the sign up was a
They
requirement.
signed them, I think it may be yes, you're right.
Okay.
So you're right, Tony. Yeah, that part, I think
Oh, it's
was.
confusingly worded at the top. It says the presiding officer shall be guided by the following rules.
But there is some leeway in there that Fred alluded to, just not in the sign up.
And most others.
I don't think that there's any harm in informing the public that if you have any inkling to have public comment, please do so in advance. And if for some reason you have second thoughts about it, that you can decline to comment. And there's no harm in that. We're not gonna judge you for that. We understand how that can be an intimidating process and or maybe the comments that you were going to deliver have already been addressed. So just a couple.
So in order to wind this a bit, before we take the discussion any further, I'd like to move for the separation of 1673 to a separate motion. Is there a second on
I'll
that?
second that.
Okay, so then we can move forward with the rest and come back to this one. But alternatively, if there was not gonna be any second, then this motion fails, then we don't need to bother with it. All right, so there is a motion to separate, moved by myself and seconded by David. Again, this just moves it to a separate motion and not approving it one way or the other. You're just saying, hey, we're gonna vote on this one particular policy separately. That's all you're being asked at this moment. Any questions on that? Okay, roll call vote on the move to separate, please.
Craig Wortman,
Yes.
Mike Higgins,
Yes.
Lori Holland.
Yes.
Fred Yant,
Yes,
Diana Johnson,
Yes.
Tony Arnett,
Yes,
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
and that motion carries. So now let's refer to the rest of the consent agenda. Are there any other items that you would like to have questions or comment on for the rest of the consent agenda, including the rest of the policies up for first reading? None? All right, let's take a roll call vote on the rest of the consent agenda, please.
Craig Wortman,
Yes.
Mike Higgins,
Yes.
Lori Holland.
Yes.
Fred Yant,
yes,
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Tony Arnett,
Yes.
Tina Johnson,
Yes.
David Schrader.
Yes.
And that motion carries, which leaves us then with the 167.3. Any other comments or questions on this policy?
One thing I never asked during policy, when we do have someone virtually, do we get an address from them?
We attempt to.
Okay,
I mean, sometimes we
Curious.
don't, sometimes it's difficult.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it's difficult to even have them really
give a
state
full-
state fully who they are.
Mhm.
And that's, problematic. We will have another policy that just addresses that later that we are working through. So,
Yeah, there is a policy on virtual attendance or virtual
Yes.
meetings. Yeah, virtual attendance and virtual meetings is a separate policy, which may dovetail into the public
Sure.
comment discussion.
I also wanna touch a little bit on Fred's comment about just how wide of powers the presiding officer has. If you look to the policy section J, item 5, it gives the presiding officer, the ability to waive rules with the approval of the board when necessary for protection or privacy of the administration of board business. So if there is a particular topic and people are just there and they really want to speak and they didn't, and that's felt by the board and the presiding officer, they can waive that rule, I don't see that happening all that often, but we have seen that happen. I mean, especially during COVID. It gives time to waive these rules, any of those rules.
I don't interpret this even remotely like that. This says waive these rules when necessary for the protection of privacy or the administration of the board's business.
Right, or the administration of
I
board's
just
business.
I don't think that's intended, you can narrow them, that's not my, that one doesn't read to me like that's purview to widen, but.
I get to show up to a lot of different board meetings, for example, plan commission meetings in Madison.
Yeah.
They do this, you have to sign up in order to speak. It runs fairly smooth, they keep a pad and a piece of paper out there, a pen out in the hall. People can sign up all the way up to the moment the meeting starts, where that's collected, it does run pretty smooth. But I do hear where you're coming from, so
My only concern on it, not to say that we won't enact it, or maybe if we do enact it and we give it a run and we try it and there's issues, we'll learn from it, we can change it. But my first concern on the policy is enacting it is it logistically, do we have a logistical plan to accomplish it? We had, Laura, you asked the question, or somebody did, about online. That's one logistical hurdle that we don't exactly have. Lynn, the paperwork, where it is outside, where people can find it, when it's collected, when it's turned into the president, when is the second one collected? Those little details in here aren't in here. And we're gonna have to figure it out by the time this becomes policy after the second read. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not even saying it's an issue. I'm just saying that there's some details in there that we haven't quite hammered out, because right now it's not how we're going to do it, it's what we're going to do. So we need to be thinking about that when we're looking at this between first and second read, should it pass first read tonight? And sort of look at what that procedure is gonna look like, should we go forward. But other than that, I don't have any concerns.
And I would say that this policy does what it should at a policy. You're talking about a procedure document, they would follow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's make my final comment on this, which is, I recognize the committee did not bring this forward. We're carrying it over from Neola. I understand the genesis of this kind of policy. And it's doing things in the name of efficiency, which are not about efficiency. And I just don't think it is consistent with the standards of openness that this board and other such public bodies should maintain. Any other final comments before I call the question? And the motion in the second carries over from the previous. So, roll call on this, please.
Craig Wortman,
Yes.
Mike Higgins,
yes.
Lori Holland,
No,
Fred Yant,
Yes.
Diana Johnson,
Yes.
Tony Arnett,
No.
Tina Johnson,
yes,
David Schrader.
Yes.
And the motion carries. All right, we will move on then to the 5 resolutions we have before us this evening. The first one is 9267, open enrollment seat availability as described in the Ed Services report. Do I hear a motion on 9267?
Motion.
Moved by Fred, and a second?
Second.
Seconded by Diana. Comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Craig Wortman,
Yes.
Mike Higgins, Lori Holland, Fred Yant,
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Tony Arnett,
Yes.
Tina Johnson.
yes,
David Schrader.
Yes.
All right, 9268 is the order of the ballot for the spring election. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Craig, and a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mike. Comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is 9269, the course additions for Riverside Middle School. Do I hear a motion?
so moved. Second,
Moved by Tina, seconded by Lori. Again, these were as described in the Ed Services report, and notes that the ELA, while the document is labeled 8th is for 7th and 8th. Comments or questions on the motion? Tina, please.
I just want to say thank everybody. I just want to thank everybody because, although I didn't attend the committee meeting, it's a big yay. I know that it's, definitely needed and, I appreciate the extra efforts, especially, by Mr. Whitaker and things like that. And it's very exciting, So thank you.
All right. If there are no other comments or questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is 9270, which is the purchase of Ford Transit passenger van. Do I hear a motion? Moved by Mike and a second.
Second.
Seconded by Tina. This was covered in the fiscal management report. Comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Mike Higgins.
Yes.
Lori Holland. Fred Yant.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Tony Arnett.
Yes.
Tina Johnson.
Yes.
David Schrader.
Yes.
And the motion carries. And lastly is 9271, which is the approval of the bid from Plunkett Raish Architects for the facilities master plan. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Moved by David in a second. Second. Seconded by Mike. Comments or questions on the motion? I want to share one comment from our absent member, Dave Smith. Fully supports the motion. He would just like to encourage this plan as delivered to be a living document that will be plausible for the district to do some maintenance on its own, rather than be one that is one moment of time, and we come back to the topic in 3 years, you have to completely jettison it and start over. So that was his one comment, and is there a way to make this more of a living document that we can at least manage some updates as numbers change on our own?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment from the administrative team who went through the review process. And I was hit on a little bit by Mr. Yant, which is, we do know that this wasn't the lowest bid. But we do, at least our administrative team who did the interviewing process, thought that this was going to be the company that we would form a long-lasting relationship with that could do exactly what your comments were. And so I appreciate the administrative team for their selection, as well as Sarah and Kevin for your writing of the RFP that would help get us there. I really appreciate that.
And I'd just like to note that I've always held the standard of it's best and lowest, not just lowest. It's best and lowest because they do need to meet the requirements of the way we need to do business. And so it's not always about low dollar, because the low dollar may not meet the standard of work that you need. So this is in the committee, it is the best and lowest. All right, any further comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Mike Higgins.
Yeah.
Lori Holland. Fred Yant.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Tony Arnett.
Yes,
Tina Johnson.
Yes.
David Schrader.
Yes.
and the motion carries. That is the end of our action items. Under agenda planning, I do not recall anything raised in the course of our discussions this evening that needs to be logged for a future board meeting in terms of agenda items.
Times past, you've given opportunity for, we board members who attended WASB to do any, feedback that we wanted to give. Both Lori and I were in attendance. I'm not saying there are those such things. I just say that, yeah, before the next one, if we might have stuff. I don't know if Lori, you have anything.
I plan on kind of just sharing with
Okay,
committees that needed, maybe
Oh,
that I
okay,
could give.
okay.
That was my
okay.
plan. but-
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we maybe, like last
Then on
February,
February.
usually it's on the February
That's
agenda.
what I'm saying. So if that's on the, if that's the only one I bring up, is that I went to a BEARD meeting on how to plan for operational referendums. So, it was instructive.
All right. Anything else under that?
Yeah, I just want to recognize Dr. Melissa Thompson is here from PRA, so if after the board meeting, you have any questions or want to, just touch base with her. She did come to represent PRA.
I'm sorry, I just have I just wanted to make sure that we catch from the HR meeting that, I suppose then we'll put that forth as far as, negotiations. I'm sorry, negotiations planning, perhaps, like
Well,
what
the
we did,
discussion-
how we did last year.
Sure.
Is that for the next meeting though? I did not hear.
Yes,
Sorry,
they
okay,
want,
the one for February?
Yeah, the
So it'll
HR
be
committee wants to
HR.
get started
Right,
on
right.
that
We'll get
process.
started on that process, and it was, I believe it was at the end of our board meeting in February last year.
Yes. So they'd like to have some discussion about the start of that process.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, in closed session.
Correct.
All right. Anything else? Then this brings us to the second opportunity for public input. And if you'd like to be recognized at this time, step up to the podium, make sure you log your name, address, and area of concern. Is there anyone like to address the board this time?
My name is Ian Pilak, I'm from 208 South East Street. I just want to say, I'm very disappointed in your vote on the public input policy. People get activated at different times. They don't know coming in here that it's not gonna run like a regular meeting. And unless those of you who voted yes are gonna stand in that alcove and instruct them on what it is, I think that's a bad expectation to set. I just wanted to say that. Again, I'm disappointed in the yes votes.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone online? Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, up front.
Oh.
Good evening, my name is Jim Dermore, 213 North Church Street, Watertown, Wisconsin. I just kind of want to second what Ian just said. Pretty disappointed in the vote on the public comment, policy. There's plenty of meetings that I've come to here where I don't intend to speak. I didn't intend to speak tonight, but, you know, listening to the things that are going on, finding out what's going on in my children's school district, sometimes you kind of get caught off guard by things that people are bringing up, by things that are being discussed, and it leads you to want to say something. I don't think somebody should have to necessarily wait for the second public comment section to be able to say something. If somebody comes up and says something that feels kind of like egregious. I get the idea that we don't want to have a debate, but at the same time, you know, plenty of us work pretty early in the morning. I gotta wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to work every day. If I can just say my comment in the beginning and just say, hey, you know, what that person just said is not representative of me, my family, many other residents of Watertown, and then I can get out of here and go to bed. That's great stuff, you know, makes it so we don't have to all stay here. But, you know, I would hope that we would continue to be open with our community. It seems like the school board has done a really great job of doing that so far, but tonight's vote seems like that's kind of a step in the opposite direction. So, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Moved by
Second.
Fred, seconded by Diana. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned at 7:38.